Just as cars run on energy, world affairs run on energy policy. John Roberts looks at the connection between our oil drills and Putin's military drills.
USA, support Ukraine!
In the face of the West's condemnation of his recent actions, Vladimir Putin is defiant. Why? He knows he has plenty of leverage. Europe relies on Russian energy. 34% of all natural gas sold in Europe is Russian gas. Several European Union nations, such as Bulgaria, Lithuania, and the Czech Republic, get most of their natural gas from Russia.
Europe is heavily dependent right now on Russian energy, most of which from natural gas, 80% flows through the Ukraine to get to Europe.
Jack Gerard is CEO of the American Petroleum Institute in Washington, the oil and gas industry's lobbying arm.
And so they've got to think twice about how they react. They've always got to be fearful of the repercussions of that.
Some say America could do more to help. But critics argue this administration has worked to limit exploitation of our oil and gas resources because they're not clean enough. For example, the energy industry says we need to export much more liquid natural gas, or LNG.
We'd be in a much closer position to be able to tell others in a very serious way, we're in the game and we're going to play for keeps.
At present, the government has approved only one export gas terminal, and it won't be functional until next year. Meanwhile, 7 others have received conditional approval.
Is it true or untrue, Jack, that the president could stand up tomorrow and say, Europe, we're going to give you as much energy as you can take, but because these LNG plants haven't been built, there's really not much that can be done about it immediately?
Well, John, the important thing is the signal. Those terminals that we'd like to have approved by the Department of Energy and the FERC, the regulatory agency here in Washington, those will be built over the next 3 to 5 years. If we send the signal to that marketplace that we're going to bring those energy resources online for the benefit of our allies, it will give Putin pause.
As it happens, Vladimir Putin's aggression is bringing the energy industry some unusual allies.
I think we need to help them get out of this strategic box in the long run by exporting American natural gas to Europe and also helping the Europeans to develop their own shale resources.
Democrat Paul Bledsoe worked on President Clinton's climate change task force.
That's not a position that a person who aligns themselves with the Democratic Party would naturally be assumed to take.
Actually, it turns out that from a climate change perspective, from an economic perspective, and a geopolitical perspective, developing natural gas makes sense.
Fracking now!
So I don't really understand these environmentalists who are against natural gas. They don't make any sense to me.
Bledsoe even argues in favor of the Keystone XL pipeline, which would bring more oil to U.S. refineries from Canada.
It may have to wait till after the midterm election to get the base out, but I think that the likelihood is the administration approves Keystone for straight economic reasons.
You don't expect a decision on Keystone until after the midterm elections?
We'll see. Politics always factor into these decisions, and they will in this decision too. That doesn't surprise me. Republicans, Democrats both do it.
We're being held up with what we could do as a nation. The technology in the oil and gas industry today in the United States is the envy of the world. The Ukrainians are looking for it. The Polish are looking for it. The president, by not making a decision on Keystone Pipeline, is putting artificial barriers in the marketplace. It's holding us back from job creation, holding us back from energy security, and holding us back from generating billions of dollars in revenue to governments at a time we need it most.
John Roberts reporting. So is President Obama playing politics with our energy supply? Let's bring back our panel. George Will, Joe Trippi, Kirsten Powers, and Charles Krauthammer. Joe, what about that charge that the U.S. could be putting pressure on Putin more effectively if it was a full court press?
Well, all these things, you know, if you pass the Keystone Pipeline tomorrow, it's 10 years from now till it's done, and you could argue that if it had been done earlier, we'd be there today. That's not going to happen. It was going to take, it would not be ready today. The same thing with the natural gas systems to get it to Europe. Those are years away. So the one thing he can do, and he's done it, is to say, look, I'm releasing 5 million barrels out of the strategic oil reserve now for sale. That's going to lower oil prices, and it's going to really hurt Russia's economy because those lower prices mean Russia can't sell them to Europe for what they've been getting. That's really going to hurt. We can do that every day for 2 years, hundreds of thousands of barrels a day. Now, that's something the president looks like he's ready to do, because he did authorize 5 million barrels to do that, and that's today. You know, not
although you're
2 years
draining
from
the
now.
reserve.
Well, hey, you've got the Russians in Crimea. You can do what you can do. You got to do it.
George?
Well, in the 1970s with the oil embargoes, we saw how energy could be used against us. In the 1980s, it is less well remembered, we used energy prices against the Russians. One of the reasons the Cold War ended was the Soviet Union was badly damaged by the Saudis and others at our behest, increasing production and driving down the prices, which brings us to the point here. Everyone says, gosh, it's terrible, the Europeans need the oil and gas from Russia. Russia has to sell that stuff. It's a tin pot country with a hunter-gatherer economy. What's it got? Caviar, vodka, and energy. And therefore, what looks like a great strength of theirs, the fact that other people want to buy their products, is also a weakness, because they have to sell it.
Does Keystone happen, Kirsten?
Oh, I don't know.
Tough one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's hard because there are all these conflicting reports, environmental impact reports. You know, some say that it's perfectly safe. Others say that
well, the State Department said it's perfectly safe, so
yeah,
that's the big one.
You have the EPA saying that they don't trust the report and that they think it's actually going to, you know, be extra detrimental to the environment. And so, yes, President Obama, his donors are a lot of green energy people and a lot of people who are concerned about environment, but also the environment is a serious issue. I think he legitimately is concerned about it, as he should be. And if there are, I think the concerns that the EPA have raised are real concerns, and you don't do it and harm the environment just to create jobs. I mean, I know that that's something that seems like a controversial thing to say, but the truth is, you know, sometimes you can't do things if it's going to have too much of a harmful impact.
Charles.
Look, Joe is talking about the problem of building all these things and how long it will take. I'm rather amused. Democrats are the great champions of infrastructure, except if it's for energy. Oh, it's going to take a long time. Of course it does. So what we're looking at is we're not going to change the invasion of Ukraine in a day or a week or a year or two. But if we were to develop what we have, a bonanza, we could be the Saudi Arabia. We are, North America, the Saudi Arabia of oil and gas. Then it will take a few years, but it will change the world. It will allow us to wean the Europeans off Russian natural gas. It will allow us to dominate the prices and to affect other countries. It will allow us to collect huge amount in taxes and to develop jobs. It is the most obvious way to exploit a natural resource and high technology, which only we have, and it is incomprehensible that this president is retarding it.
Kirsten, there are 175,000 miles of hazardous liquid pipelines under our country. Keystone Pipeline's less than 2,000 more. Won't make a particle of difference as a threat to the environment.
When we come back, have we hung a closed sign on the final frontier?